Good morning and welcome to the Columbia University World Leaders Forum. I would like to begin by acknowledging a number of people who have joined us this morning. Her Excellency Laura Flores, the Ambassador of Panama to the United Nations, John Coatsworth, Provost of the University, Julissa Reynoso, former U.S. Ambassador to Uruguay and Adjunct Professor of Law and of International Affairs here at Columbia, and Ernesto Rangel, co-founder of Columbia's Greater Caribbean Studies Center. Thank you to that center for its co-sponsorship of this event. Today we are honored to have Your Excellency, the Vice President and Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Panama with us. Though it is a relatively small nation of approximately 4 million people, in Panama we find all of the cross-cutting realities, the benefits and the pitfalls that define global society in 2016. Indeed, Vice President Malo has noted that Panama, quote, was globalized before globalization was in fashion. This is a function of Panama's history, its geography, its commercial relationships, and its national desire to be engaged in the world. This past summer saw the completion of a 9-year-long project costing $5.4 billion that expanded the Panama Canal and once again changed the way freight is moved from one side of the world to the other. Last year, Panama was joined by many in the world in celebrating the canal's 100th anniversary. The canal is a source of the country's outsized influence as a physical and symbolic bridge, uniting oceans and hemispheres. It is emblematic of Panama's special relationship with the United States and perhaps most significantly, an economic engine responsible for a national growth rate well above the average in Central America. The country's economic vitality has been aided in recent years by a tourism boom and fresh development. Yet even as Panama has prospered in these ways, the country struggles with significant disparities of income and wealth among its people, troubling economic inequality that is also familiar to us here in the United States and across the globe. Though there has been some recent great progress in Panama on this front, roughly 20% of the population remains in poverty, even as the Panamanian economy has made positive strides. As you are no doubt aware, Panama is home to the law firm that was the source of millions of documents revealing the existence of tax havens used by some of the world's wealthiest individuals and corporations to shield income from their home country's authorities. This captured the world's attention earlier in the year, and because the story was about more than offshore tax shelters. It confronted us with important questions about whether it is possible to ensure transparency in a global financial system that simply must embrace open information if it is to survive. Vice President, a global citizen herself who studied her undergraduate and graduate degrees here in the United States, is really well equipped to help us understand these matters. As noted, she is Panama's Minister of Foreign Affairs and for many years was a manager in the United Nations Development Program. The title of her talk today is A Nation Committed to Democracy, Transparency, and Sustainability. Please join me in welcoming to the World Leaders Forum Her Excellency Isabel de Malo. Vice President. Here, but if the sun is too bright, you may want to shift over there.
Yes.
Yeah, I think.
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, President Bollinger and Provost Cotsworth, as well as the Columbia community for giving me the opportunity of sharing this moment with you and talk a little bit more about Panama. I know that Colombia has for many years just harnessed freedom of an exchange of ideas, and that is something that is very natural to me and to Panama, so I value the opportunity of being at this World Leaders Forum. And I feel especially at home here because Panama has really always harnessed this culture of dialogue and possibilities and openness to the world, just like the Columbia community does. Now, having spent the past few days at the United Nations General Assembly exposed to the debate of global issues, listening to migrants and the crisis of refugees, the challenges of the Sustainable Development Goals, the challenges of terrorism and other global issues that we now face, having been last week at Washington, D.C. at the Our Oceans Conference hosted by the Department of State, where we looked on the issues of our oceans and the challenges of environment and of overcoming all of the harm that we've done to the oceans. I just look at this room and I'm filled with hope. I just look at all of these young people, vibrant, energetic, with ideas, with a call to contribute to the challenges that we face. And I see a lot of hope, and I am sure that you will have a great opportunity to jump into the world and give your contribution to all of these situations. And I just encourage you to find your passion, to look for your passion, to embrace it, and to work at it, and to take it step by step. And you'll see that you will be able, from whichever way, from whichever corner you are, to make your contribution. Be that you decide to be a community worker or an academic, or devote your life to public service or the private sector, there is always a way that you can contribute to the world in general. And I think that's very important, and I am sure that's something that is really ingrained in teaching here at Columbia University, and it's something that I truly value. Let me tell you, you may not think that was so long ago, but I was once a young student, and at that moment in time, I never thought and defined my roadmap like I'm going to devote my life to public life, or I'm going to be in politics, or I never did. I just knew that I wanted to work on global issues from whichever corner, and took it step by step. And that's what I encourage you to do, just take it step by step, but always having in mind the global challenges that we're faced, that are ever growing, and just to give your best at that. So I'll get into it and talk to you about Panama. I hope we have the opportunity for all of you to know a little bit better my country after we leave this room. Panama is a very small yet very dynamic economy, very dynamic country. The IMF has forecasted a regional contraction for 2016. However, despite that forecast, some countries still remain in relative states of stability, and Panama is one of those. Our economy has seen double-digit growth in the earlier part of the decade, and is now forecasted, according to the International Monetary Fund, to expand 5.8%. That is twice the projection for the rest of the world, according to the IMF. That has happened because Panama has a consistent commitment to pragmatism in trade, economics, and investing in Panama means having an easier reach to the rest of the region because of our connectivity to the rest of the world. With investment grade ratings since 2010, last year Panama managed to attract $5 billion in foreign direct investment. And I must point out that is the largest foreign direct investment in Latin America in proportion to our GDP. As a country, we're not commodity dependent, as some of our neighbors. Our strength lies in services. financial services, the canal services, the logistics sector. Panama's perspectives and opportunities are in general framed within that economic reality, which is a very diversified economy. According to the World Economic Forum, Panama leads Latin America in 5 key performing indicators, those being port infrastructure, availability of financial services, foreign direct investment, technology transfer, and quality of the investment climate. If you go to Panama, you will see multinational companies present in Panama that are attracted by our geographical position and our connectivity to the rest of the world through our air hub and our canal, and the facilities for the services that the country provides. The World Bank ranks Panama 40th in the world and first in Latin America in the Logistics Performance Index. Now, you may all ask, how can a small country in Central America have this economic development while some of our neighbors have a different situation? Well, as President Bollinger referred to, Panama has been a global place ever since we were born as a republic. And I guess that's a result of our geographical position. We're in the middle of the Americas, and by virtue of being a short, small territory with the possibility of uniting 2 oceans and then having originally a railroad and then a canal has just lured people to Panama and has made us connected to the world. And talking about the canal, when the canal was built, Panama had a population of less than 1 million inhabitants. And we had the United States come and build the canal. It was an issue of sovereignty for Panama's democracy for many, many years, fought by many generations to recuperate the canal. The canal and a territory that was designed just to support the canal. We were able to do that. In 1977, we signed an agreement with the United States, the Torrijos-Carter Agreement. President Carter was the president of the United States at the time, and the treaty defined that by 1999, the canal and its zones would return to Panama. I share this with you because today, as President Bollinger mentioned, we are very proud to have inaugurated just a couple months ago an expanded canal. And we're very proud because this expanded canal was a result of Panamanian nationals, Panamanian workforce led by the Panamanian Authority of the Canal at a cost of $5.4 billion. If we take that amount, and I'm not an economist, there are many here, Professor Stiglitz, if you take that into dollars of the beginning of last century, we just built a second canal. And we did it ourselves. So it's something that we're very proud of and represent the possibilities of Panama and the potential of our country. This opens new opportunities for Panama and for the region. This will allow vessels triple the capacity. 120 vessels of post-Panamax size have already crossed the canal since the inauguration in past July 26. And then the port system, which is part of the logistics sector, will be enlarged as well in order to be able to service the canal. Our port system is already the most sophisticated in Latin America, holding almost 7 million containers. And with the canal and the enlargement of the logistics sector, Panama will be even more a bridge between Asia and the Americas. We're also sure that the enlarged canal will create a whole new route, because LNG vessels that were too large to pass through the previous canal will be able to pass through the expanded canal. One or two vessels, LNG vessels, have already passed through the enlarged canal, and this will open just a new route to carry LNG, liquefied natural gas, from the the Gulf of Mexico to Northeast Asia. Now, the connectivity of Panama as a result of our geographical position is not only limited to the canal. We have an important air hub, actually, with over 2,500 weekly passenger flights. Our airport in 2015 served 13 million passengers. Now, We're talking about a country of 4 million people. And our airport served 13 million passengers, and it's being expanded right now, and we have forecasted that by 2020 we will see about 20 million passengers go through our hub, which serves various cities directly in Canada, various cities in the United States, various cities in Europe, and we even have a direct flight to Turkey, and will, by the end of the year, have a direct flight to Dubai, and probably next year to Qatar. So in every way you look, Panama is a country that's connected to the world, and our people have been forever connected to the world. In terms of tourism offer, these crossroads provide diversity, and you can have a historic quarter at the same time that you have an amazing offer for shopping, and you have biodiversity of species that connected when Panama emerged from the waters and we had two land masses connect. So we are a very small country, but very unique. In terms of governance, which is, I believe, at the end, what makes things possible or not, institutions. We face many challenges still, and we're working hard at that. There have been periods within our recent history where government has been used as a way to finance a personal gain, as a system to install and permit corruption and just use government as a possibility for private and personal enrichment. We've gone through other challenges in terms of governance. Like many other countries in the region, we had a military dictatorship, and we had a US invasion before our democracy was restored. But we did restore democracy, and we're very proud that we have had 6 presidents elected in the past 26 years, or through democratic processes and electoral results. And today, we're proud to say that we have a strong democracy, that we value freedom of speech, that we value participation, and I believe we have been able to move forward very fast in our democratic period with development. And yes, we still have 20% of Panamanians that live in poverty, and we need to resolve that. However, 8 years ago, we had 40%. So we've come a long way, and 20% is not little, and we still have a long way to go. But I believe we have been able to move forward very fast as a result of a particular thing to Panamanians, which is the possibility to dialogue and reach consensus and discuss things within our country. And we haven't, you look at Latin America, and we had war many places. We had conflict many places. We have one last conflict in our next door neighbor, Colombia, and they're about to sign peace, and we're delighted. That's the last conflict in the region. But Panama never went through an armed conflict like that. And we've had our trouble, and we'll still continue to have our trouble. And I believe we never went through a conflict like that because Panama, as a country open to the world and having been always able to commerce and transact with other people, there is something within ingrained in us, which is to be able to talk things out, to be able to discuss things and resolve them through dialogue. And if you look at the history of these 26 short years with a new restored democracy, you will find that major issues have been approached in this way. For example, we were to receive the Panama Canal in 1999, and it was a major challenge to us institutionally. What is the legal framework to receive the Panama Canal? Because of course we wanted the Panama Canal to continue to be as efficient as it was with the US administration, or better. And this was a challenge institutionally because, things in government, they don't work that well. And in Panama, still, we have many challenges in terms of institution. So in order to define the institutional framework to take the administration of the canal, we organized a dialogue process. And we sat around the same table, all political parties, government and opposition. We sat around the table, the private sector, the labor force, and there were things being discussed, such as, what if the labor at the canal decides to have a strike and stops the transit? This is unthinkable. But these are things that are hard to discuss in a democratic framework, because freedom to strike and to protest is part of a democracy. So we had a dialogue process and defined by consensus and was approved at the Legislative Assembly by unanimity. It's the only thing that has been approved at the Assembly by unanimously, and resolved it. And that is a way we have approached other issues, such as problems that we had and we still have with social security, with health, with education. And this is something that is very close to my heart, because this is what I devoted my life to before my life in government. I had the opportunity to serve for 15 years as UNDP, and I concentrated in governance, and I had the blessing of being able to participate as a convener of these dialogue processes. So this is very close to my heart. So institutions are very important. And institutions are very important to our government, and is one of our government's priority. And transparency is also central to our government and our priorities. Strengthening the rule of law and laying the political foundations for sustainable growth, we understand, is the only way to continue to develop Panama and ensure that all of our people are able to jump into the car of development. We have a country that grows. We have an economic sector that's strong, but we still have people that we need to incorporate into this part of the economy. And that is a major challenge. And we understand very well that the strengthening of institutions is central to this. We understand as a government that politics is a vehicle to serve, and that politics should never be used as a vehicle for personal enrichment and personal business and personal advances. And as part of the efforts that our government has moved forward in terms of transparency, Transparency International has designated Panama to be the host of the next International Anti-Corruption Conference that will take place in Panama City this coming December. Good governance, we understand, also requires long-term planning in public finances. Supported by sound fiscal policies and long-term investment, which I know is at the forefront of concern for Colombia's Committee on Global Thought, is part of Panama's priorities. And I would like to single out Professor Patrick Bolton's work, who has written widely on the stabilizing force of long-term investment vehicles, because we understand the importance of long-term investment vehicles, and share with you that Panama, a few years ago, created its own sovereign fund. Now, regarding public finances, of course, we still finance our development and take on debt, and that is a discussion in itself. But we do have a wealth fund that has been fed primarily by resources of the canal, which supports our finances and as a backbone to the government. In terms of transparency as well, I know that Colombia has interest in many areas of where Panama and Panama's governments have interest in. I know that we all strive to fight for a more transparent world, because we understand it's a prerequisite to finally find and reach development. And there was, earlier this year, publications that made my country very popular. And I understand that Panama is a great name, and that is why these publications have my country's name in it. But the bad thing for Panama, because of the publications, is that it really didn't show what Panama is in our efforts. The good thing about the publications is that it really pinpointed the reality of a global challenge that we face and that we must continue to work on. Once again, to finance development. We will not be able to finance development if large sums of money are hidden to avoid contributing to development. I've even been told that there are some courses that will take place at Columbia University at the next spring semester. And once again, I hope that these efforts to concentrate on the information that has been published allows the academia and you as students and us as governments and the world to identify where are the challenges and to continue to work hard to overcome those challenges. And it also provides Panama an opportunity to show our progress and to show the challenges that we still face. In terms of transparency, 2 months before the paper's publications, the Financial Action Task Force held our efforts in advancing necessary legislation to strengthen our financial center capacity to combat money laundering and illicit acts. And this is a result of a roadmap that upon taking office 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, we established in order to move forward with these challenges. We have also stated our commitment to implement OECD's common reporting standard on automatic exchange of information. And actually, this is something that was announced by President Varela last year at the United Nations General Assembly, way before the papers were published. We have also recently committed to signing the Multilateral Convention on Mutual Administrative Assistance on Tax Matters, also known as MAC. Based on a global issue and a global challenge, as a key player, we will continue our strong commitment towards transparency, and we look forward to continue working with institutions like Columbia that also have this objective at the forefront. Let me talk to you a little bit about foreign policy. In terms of foreign policy, we have based our foreign policy on 2 main pillars. One pillar, which is Panama as a country that promotes dialogue and promotes understanding, and we were proud to give our little, make it a little possible in some way for the moving forward of relations between Cuba and the United States at the Summit of the Americas last year in Panama. And we believe that the fact that Panama is a country that promotes dialogue, promotes understanding, created the scenario, which it doesn't mean it's Panama's responsibility. This is a result of the US's and Cuba's work and not Panama's. But creating the scenario is not a minor thing, and we are proud to have contributed in that way. Our second pillar is to be active in the global development agenda. We've worked very hard and will continue to work very hard in terms of human rights. And as part of the recognition of the world to our work, Panama was able to join for the first time the Human Rights Council at the United Nations. We also nominated a Panamanian for the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, and she was elected for the first time ever. A Panamanian is a member of Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. And I want to refer, in terms of development, because the global agenda is critical, and once again, going back to what we've been discussing at the UNGA in the past few days, there's so much to be done. There's so much work to be done, and the only way we're going to move forward is with a multi-stakeholder approach. And I'd like to refer to Jeffrey Sachs' message in this regard, and I quote, "Goals mobilize stakeholder networks, community leaders, politicians, government ministries, the scientific community, leading non-governmental organizations, religious groups, international organizations and foundations are all motivated to come together for a common purpose." And I just promote that you continue to work as an academic institution in shedding light onto these global challenges. Because shedding light onto global challenges is the only thing that's going to bring forward multi-stakeholder to participate in the solution. We just approved last year at the United Nations General Assembly the Sustainable development growth. As the most informed generation, all of you have great opportunities, but you have great responsibilities as well. And I invite you to think of these global challenges and how can you contribute? How can you participate? From Panama, we're doing our part, and we will continue to do our part. We have just ratified the climate convention. We were the 28th country to do so and deposited our instruments a couple of days ago. We're framing our development efforts locally in the framework of the Sustainable Development Goals. And in terms of our local challenges, I would say that education is one of the most important. We understand that our most valued resource is our people. Government believes in investing in human capital. The efforts that we are making, for example, to ensure that our young students are bilingual. We've devoted important financial resources in order to train our teachers in that regard. And in that framework, I hope that we can work closer with Columbia, highlighting the contribution that knowledge makes, once again, to development. We'll welcome the role of universities. And also, I'll take the opportunity to mention that I am aware that Columbia has taken on the mission of becoming an ever more global university and setting up global centers. And why not consider, at some point in time, establishing one in Panama? You know, we are host. We don't not only wish to be a center for maritime services and for the logistics sector and for having the canal and an air hub. We wish to be a center for knowledge. And actually, for the past 10 years, I believe, we have been the hub of the United Nations regional offices to Latin America. Because it's easy to move from Panama to go elsewhere, once again, due to connectivity. But being the host of this UN system regional headquarters, I think it's an ideal situation, President Bollinger, for Colombia to place a global center in Panama. So now I have publicly challenged you to think about it. Once again, Panama as a connector, we like to see ourselves as a great connection. Panama emerged from the waters 3 million years ago to connect two land masses, and that created a whole new array of biodiversity. Our railroad was the first railroad to connect two oceans. With the canal, we connected through the sea these two oceans. We have an air hub connecting the Americas, and we like to see ourselves once again as a very small country doing a small contribution to the world, as a country that tries to do its part as a service to humanity. I am sure that you won't remember most of what I have said in this message, but I do hope that you remember one thing, that Panama is much more than a canal, and definitely much more than publications. And I invite you to come and see for yourself. I began my message encouraging you to find your passion and take it step by step, convinced that humanity has a great future. And when I look at rooms like this, again, filled with extraordinary young people, I see hope and I see possibility. And if Panama, a small country in Central America, has been able, we hope, to give its contribution, so can you. No matter the obstacle, you will find your way, and I just invite you really to take it step by step, but always keep in the back of your mind, you'll leave this university trying to be the best at your career, but always keep in mind you need to be the best at your career and give your best to the world, because at the end, that's what's left for all of us and for our children. You will have a clean slate as you graduate from this prestigious university that will have given you the strongest of tools. You'll have a clean slate, but with a lot of knowledge and a lot of opportunities. So I encourage you just to go running and fix the world. There is a lot to be fixed. Participating on foreign policy allows you to see that very, very clearly. There's a lot to be fixed, and there's a lot of hope. Thank you very much.
Okay. So thank you, everyone. My job is to help moderate some Q&A. We have 2 microphones that have been placed for Madam Vice President to address some of your issues, concerns. Please, questions. Please state your name, your affiliation at Columbia, and your area of study, and please pose a question. Thank you. Start over here.
Hello, my name is Camilo Rivera. I'm a junior student at Columbia University studying political science. And my question was more pointing out the elephant in the room here, and that's the question of the credibility of the commission Panama set up. As you know, Joseph Stiglitz and another member of the committee resigned on terms that they didn't believe that the committee was going to be credible, that they didn't have enough independent power, and that it wasn't transparent enough to make the recommendations Panama needed. So my question is, how committed is the Varela administration to combating tax havens, and how committed is it to hear the tough recommendations that the country needs to do to fix the problem it has? Thank you.
Madam Vice President.
Thank you for pointing out the elephant in the room. I'll answer in your 2 separate questions, and I'm very glad Professor Stiglitz is here, present. Our expectations of the committee were very high. That's why we invited Professor Stiglitz. We would have not invited such a renowned scholar that we respect to be a member of the independent commission that we named, if it were not because we were and are very serious about listening to what they have to say, and also very interested in having concrete recommendations. And we know enough of Professor Stiglitz's work to know that the recommendations were going to be important and probably tough. That's why we invited him. And I have to say, I personally had very high expectations of the work. Actually, we discussed this when we invited him, and I personally did. We were kind of shocked at the message, and I respect it. I wish to understand better what happened. I still have that pending. The information that I have is 2 things. We set up an independent committee formed by 7 people, 3 international, 5 or 3 international, 4 Panamanian. Very, I must say, in the case of the Panamanians, very recognized Panamanians, as well as the international members were recognized people. The Panamanian members, one of them was the Panama Canal administrator for 10 years. Another one of them was a member of the World Bank for many years, and later on president of the Republic of Panama. So a strong team. What I got, the information I got from the link, because we had a liaison between the government and the committee, was 2 things. First of all, that there was this agreement with the objective of the report. The government had requested a report on recommendations to Panama, and some of the members were more geared towards a recommendation to the global system. And there was difference between them. This was not the decision of the Panamanian government. There were differences within them. The second thing I heard is that the Panamanian government had refused to make the report public. And Professor Stiglitz, that's here, will be able to corroborate if you ask him later about this. We never said that we didn't want the report to be public. We said we needed to see it first. It's just understandable that the government of Panama cannot learn about a public report on the papers. You know, what is weeks, a month to review it? I think that's responsible. As a government, I think that is only responsible. We didn't want to see it to hold it. We didn't want to see it to hide it. I mean, come on, would I pretend to hide Professor Stiglitz's work? That's impossible. So I understand those are the two reasons for the exit of two international members of the committee. I respect their decision. I regret it, but it's their decision. The rest of the members have continued to work, and we will be looking forward to their recommendations. And unfortunately, is not a member of seven with two important scholars as a part of it, but you know that was beyond our control. The second question, is Panama's government truly committed? 100%, 150%. And I mentioned in my message, and I'll reiterate it because it's geared particularly to the question, not as a result of the publications. Our government, and I was sharing with President Bollinger before this message, I must recognize that Panama came to this process late. And there are costs to us because we came late as a country. During the previous government, as my current president, Varela, was vice president and minister of foreign affairs, he defined the roadmap and moved fast. And we negotiated within a year and a half of his participation in that government 30 double taxation agreements, which was the norm at the time. And they were implemented. And then the alliance broke, and then he left the government, and nothing happened. So for 3 years, nothing happened. I must recognize that. So we assume government, and we have a backlog, a huge backlog that we've overcome with effort. We were on FATF's gray list when our government took office. And within 1 year, before the papers, we were removed from that gray list. And I have heard FATF's team directly praise how fast Panama took the steps that needed to be taken to be removed from that list. Regarding transparency on fiscal matters, and listen, once again, the Panama Papers showed a system, a global system that we need to look at. You had a Panamanian law firm registering offshores in a second country. 80% of the offshores registered by that law firm were not registered in Panama. And then you have those offshores opening bank accounts in a third country. None of those banks are in Panama. None. And then you have, through that system, people hiding their wealth. I think that's terrible. It's not a question of Panama. It's a question of what the system still allowing. Every country needs to do their part, and we're doing ours. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Next question, please, right here in the middle.
Hi, my name is William Holness. I'm a Columbia University Master in Sustainability Management second-year student, but I'm also a Fulbrighter originally from Panama City, Panama. And I have to say I'm very inspired by your words. And regarding what you were saying about sustainable growth, I know, and we're all aware that Panama is growing and is predicted to keep growing economically. But as a sustainability management student, international environmental policy oriented, my question is, you have mentioned about erosion and some other topics that are coming and becoming more important if we're facing climate change, as well as the goals that we have committed to for the conference of the parties signed in Paris last year. what are the stakes, or what can be shared at this point of what are the objectives, or what are the plans for Panama to keep growing and to keep, but doing it sustainably, taking into account our natural resources and our commitments toward the Conference of the Parties?
Thank you. As I participated last week at our Oceans Conference in Washington, I heard Secretary Kerry say that this year, every month has been the hottest month ever, and that this decade was the hottest decade, and the decade before that, the hottest decade. So in terms of environment, that's a big elephant in the room. I mean, it's just not sustainable, the way we're doing things. And in terms of development in general, if we are not able to ensure that growth reaches everybody, what are we doing? Panama has a great challenge in that regard. What are we doing as a government? The most important objective of our government is to work geared towards well-being and investment on the people. We have a 17,500 million investment government plan where most of it is going to water and sanitation. Now it's sad to say, but it's true that a country that has been growing like we still have challenges in terms of water and sanitation, something so basic to people. We were elected with an offer to concentrate on people, to work on the basic needs, and we believe that is a necessity in order to move forward in terms of sustainability. And we have an inclusive view of development, understanding that sustainability lies in bringing people in, taking care of the environment, and being responsible. I don't know if I want to take that question.
Okay. Are you sure?
I'm sure. I don't know. I am sure.
Professor, please. Thank you.
So I'm Joe Stiglitz that you referred to earlier. Let me, I think, try to set the record straight. Our first meeting of the committee was held here at Columbia after the launch in Panama. And at that meeting, there actually was a complete agreement among the members of the committee on two issues. The first was that there had to be transparency of the report. You could not have a report on transparency that was not transparent. It would have no credibility. We also agreed, and obviously somebody didn't communicate this well with you, we also agreed that the government would have time to respond. We said we didn't specify how much time. We said that was a question that the government had to decide, and we would listen to whatever proposal they had. But we recognize, many of us like Mark have been on other commissions, and when you make a recommendation, to the UN or to a government, it has to have time to think about it and to say how to respond. So we were very clear that there would be time for that response. But we were also very clear that we could not go forward as a committee without the assurance of the government that the report would eventually be made public without any redaction, without taking out any recommendation. So I don't know where you heard about, but there were several people here who were at that meeting and will confirm what I just said. The second thing is there was actually complete agreement on the committee about what we were going to write about. As you yourself pointed out, the issues of secrecy, secret havens, has to be dealt on a global level. and one has to assess what Panama does in terms of what are the global norms. And so part of our discussion is the evolution of global norms, where they are going, where they should be going, and how Panama needs to fit into that, and that there was an evolving global scene on this. So the committee was in consensus on the issue that we could not discuss Panama without talking about what was going on in the world. And there was no disagreement about the content of our report. Now, after our meeting, we waited for confirmation from the government that there would be this transparency. And, a discussion about, did they want 1 week, 1 month, whatever the terms were. And we never got that assurance. And we tried very hard to communicate with your office, with other people in the government, because we were very concerned that our resignation would have adverse effects on Panama. And we had joined the committee because we wanted to help Panama. And unfortunately, every effort to communicate, including with some members of the committee, turned out to fail. Some members of the committee who were the most, who had some differences of views, said they could take my call in a week or so. So it was clear that we were running into a roadblock. But as I say, in terms of our regional meeting here in New York, there was no disagreement. And there was no, the issue was simply the assurance of the government that there would be transparency and a statement about how much time they wanted. So I don't know where you were hearing your reports from, but they obviously were not an accurate transmission of what happened at our first meeting. Now, in terms of the question going forward, which really is the issue, is that's the past, and I can say at the minimum there's some misunderstandings. The real issue is going forward. I think there are going to be two issues going forward, broad issues. There have been significant advances in legislation, as you talked about. The issues are questions of enforcement and implementation. For instance, my understanding is you have a Freedom of Information Act under which this would have been available if anybody had requested it, in any case. And in some contexts, my understanding is you've talked very proudly about not you personally, but the government's talked proudly about the Freedom of Information Act. But it's interesting, nobody responded when we said the discussions about confidentiality, nobody responded. Oh, by the way, you don't have to worry because we have a Freedom of Information Act. It was obviously not in the minds of anybody on the committee the existence of this Freedom of Information Act. So there are going to be a number of questions about implementation going forward of all of the legislation. And the second big issue, there are the most difficult, or at least one of the difficult. There are several that we'll be coming forward with a report about what we think all the countries, it's not Panama, but all the countries need to do. One of the big issues is who are the beneficial owners of the corporations, and because the secrecy over that is what gave is why people go to the secret havens, and it makes it very difficult to find out the corruption, and that's why the Panama Papers was so interesting. And the question is there going to be a registry that is at least searchable by enforcement agencies and hopefully by the press on beneficial ownership? And that will be one of the key issues. And it'd be interesting to know what the government's response to beneficial ownership and having a registry that's at least searchable by enforcement agencies.
Vice President, you have a lot there, so.
I have what?
There's a lot there, so please, if you could address the
yes,
question.
I had to request a pen to
Okay,
write
take
down
notes.
so I wouldn't forget to answer. I hope I don't.
I think that would, by the way, given the time, that would be the last question that we're going to take, because I know you have other commitments, so please.
Professor Stiglitz, thank you for your frank message, and that just brings me to highlight to all of you the importance of communication. The question on transparency was posed to us, and the answer was clear. Yes, the government has no problem with the report being made public after the government has seen it. We even talked about times, and I said, I don't know, 2, 3 weeks, a month. Let's discuss how long. I don't know what happened, really. But I am glad you're framing it the way you're framing it. That is the past, and we need to concentrate on moving forward. On moving forward, regarding beneficial ownership, actually during the previous government, a law was passed in order to request offshores to register beneficial owners. Also during the past administration, supposedly it was approved and it was to be in effect, say, next year, and it was moved forward to 2018 or something like that during the previous administration. One of the first steps that we took as a government was to bring that back, and that law is into effect January, if I'm not mistaken. So as of January, all offshores registered in Panama should have available the list of beneficial owners. And I agree with you. That is critical and very important. Regarding the possibilities of applying and executing and putting in place all of this legislation, which refers to institutions, it's a major challenge. It is a major challenge. I've had discussions with the director of taxes in Panama, and he says, listen, I have needs of resources and people in order to collect my own taxes. Now I have to set up a unit that is able to exchange information, and it's not easy. It's very technical. However, we understand that we have weaknesses there. We understand that we have a long way to go, and we are clear that the legislation means nothing if we're not able to implement it. So I can only tell you that we're working very hard at that, and that I hope that we move forward fast. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Vice President. We are at the conclusion of this exchange. Do you have any final remarks for the audience here? And we also wanted to thank you on behalf of Columbia and colleagues and students and the like for your presentation, your frankness, and your willingness to have an open discussion on such important topics that affect not only Panama but all of Latin America and the Caribbean. So, if you want to give some closing thoughts.
Just to thank you all. Thank you for chairing this last part of the conference. Thank you, President Bollinger, for the opportunity. Thank you all students for giving me the chance to share with you a little bit more about my country. Thank you, Professor Stiglitz, Mark, for being present here and having the exchange that we've had. And I'll just conclude by reiterating the great challenges that lay ahead of us, the obstacles that small countries like mine have in terms of moving forward, which is why at the end it's all a matter of people. It's all a matter of willingness. It's all a matter of working with the will to move forward. And I strongly believe we are moving forward. Maybe we could move forward faster globally. I think we could. But as mentioned, there is a lot of hope because we know where our problems are, and that's always a first step. We have every day more and more people interested in learning about the problems and trying to give their contribution to solving them. And your presence here is a reflection of that. Thank you very much. Sí, yo sé.